somewhere in Dreamland.
It looked like the complexion of a dead person in a casket.
Random memories of waking up in the night, knowing I'm not alone in the room.
We have 3 cities that all claim to be the UFO capital of the entire world.
So when she turned on the kitchen light, it stopped walking.
My parents told me these things didn't exist.
They're a little more ominous, creepy, scary, and the question is there, what is this thing?
Hovering just inches from the window was literally is what you'd imagine a grave to be.
Never seen anything like this in my life.
I'm still left with more questions than answers.
Welcome back, dreamers. If you've had an encounter, please contact me at somedreamland@gmail.com or find me on Facebook at Somewhere in Dreamland Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please help us grow by subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing this episode with friends, family, and social media. Tonight, my guest is Tamara Wolfe Strickland. Tamara is a Celtic priest and a sensitive. She is also the go-to medium for Crystal Kelley and the Upstate South Carolina Paranormal Group. Along with this, Tam also has many personal experiences of her own to share. So without further ado, grab your blankets, turn down the lights, get comfy, and let's fade away into
Dreamland.
All right, Tam, so let's start at the beginning with your story.
Right at the beginning. Well, first of all, I am a mother of 4. I have 3 girls, 1 boy. The oldest one is 27, soon to be 27, and she's married. And then I have my next one is, she's 21. And then I can't even remember my kid's age. And then I have a 19-year-old and then an 18-year-old. And of course, my husband and I, in July, we will be married 21 years. And I just, I sit and look back. I can't believe that I've been married to somebody that long.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
That's a pretty big feat nowadays. It's hard to find somebody that's been married 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when we were out, I think a couple weeks back, we were out to eat, and this lady's like, "Oh, are y'all newlyweds?" I was like, "Yeah, we've been newlyweds for 21 years." So we still keep the kind of, I think that's the whole thing. People don't keep the spark alive. You still, even though when you're married, you still have to keep wooing. You still have to have date night. You still have to show, the kids call it PDA, but, still show affection and things like that in a marriage. You've got to still keep the fire burning for each other.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's work.
Oh, yeah. Everything's work. Anything worth it is work. So.
Exactly.
So are you, what do you consider yourself? Are you a psychic, a medium? Are you an empath, or all those things? What exactly would you classify yourself as?
Well, Crystal calls me a medium, and I kind of like, excuse me, what? Don't put that title on me. I sense things, and it's not all the time. I mean, I can walk into a place and I can sit there and say, I don't feel anything. And then I can walk into a place and it can literally make me sick. My husband and I actually was talking about that. I'm not a title person. Even though I'm an ordained minister, actually I'm a priest, and I still have a hard time with, the bishops calling me Mother Tamara. I'm still Tamara. Titles don't mean anything to me. There'd be times that I'm, because, the whole thing is, if you get into a psychic and a medium, people want you to read them. I can't do that. That's not my ability.
Okay.
So I sense things, I see things, I get visions. Yeah, and I'll explain further on.
So you're not like was that John Edwards or anything like that? You can't. Yeah, I get it.
No, don't come to me and sit there and go, it's my loved one. And I'm like, I have a person by the name of N that's coming. No, I'm not Chip Coffee. Chip Coffee isn't totally different. Now I could probably go into a haunted place and I can probably sense some things, or see things. But no, I'm not one of those that I'm not going to read your palm. I'm not going to read the tea leaves and the tea.
You mentioned you were a priest. What sort of priest are you?
I am a priest in the Celtic Church of the Way.
Okay.
Great place. I really love our group of people. We believe in being a community. We believe in helping everybody. We believe in a lot of things. That would have to be another podcast for another day.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Sounds interesting.
It's very interesting. I absolutely love it. Even though I grew up Baptist, I have been to Pentecostal churches. I have gone to Church of God. They're Orthodox and they have some Catholicism. And see, I had an aunt that was Catholic, and I always loved some of the stuff from the Catholic. And that's one thing that my bishop supports me in what I do now. And I will, I'll go into detail about that.
Okay. Well, start me out right at the very beginning of all your paranormal stuff. Sorry.
Oh, my paranormal. Oh, okay. This is going to be a long podcast. Anyway, our podcast. The first time I remember, we were talking about, was when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and it was a entity, whatever it was. Still to this day, it affects me at being 47. But it was the shadow. I call it the shadow person in the closet. One night, my mom and my dad was having a party. They had some people over, and my door was shut. My closet door was open, and I kind of started feeling that something was staring at me. And when I rose up, all I could see was this entity, looking at me. Now, his eyes, you could see his eyes, and he just sat there and blinked like he was watching me. Scared the living daylights out of me. And so all he did was sit there. He didn't come out of the closet. I couldn't see. It was weirdly shaped. He wasn't human shaped. It didn't have the red eyes. It had the glowing eyes. Like, if you shine a light in a cat's eye at nighttime, that kind of glowing. And it still to this day, I cannot sleep with the closet door open.
Wow. Now, is that the only time you've seen it, or have you seen it since? And is it? I
haven't seen it since I was probably 8.
Okay. And but was it only at that location that you saw it?
It was at that time, yes. It was only at that location. But his demeanor or his presence scared me as a young child, to the point to where, I wasn't going to leave any closets just in case, because we do know that spirits can transfer. Spirits can follow you. Spirits can be attached to objects and things like that. At that time, I didn't know that, but I was not going to leave a closet door open.
Don't blame
to
you.
give it a chance. No.
Now, at that age, did you know that you had special abilities?
No. It wasn't until I was a teenager that the special abilities was brought to my attention.
Okay.
And I will explain. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but because I want to stay on track, and I'll get there in my teenage years, because that's when everything really started happening more so than in my younger years. from the time I was basically 16 on until to now, that's when everything is just kind of, I don't want to say hit the fan, because that's not really a proper phrase to say, but that's when everything started kicking in.
Okay. Well, move me to the next part of your super cool, interesting paranormal story.
Cool.
Yeah.
My family decided to move to Greenville, South Carolina, and we moved into a 3-bedroom, 3-story house. And what makes it 3rd story was it had the basement. And at nighttime, my father would go down there and listen to the record players and get high. And anyway, he started noticing that he would hear footsteps upstairs, going up and down the stairs. And he got up, woke my mama up, and he would tap her and it's like, why are the kids up and down the stairs? What's going on? She's like, God, David, the kids are not up. They're sound asleep. Go look at them. And so anyway, and then of course, he brought it up. He was like, I don't know which one of y'all were up and down. Y'all need to quit going up and down the stairs at night. This is like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And we all know what 3 a.m. is. But anyway, and he says, y'all need to get in bed because, you got school. You don't need to be playing on the stairs. And we're like, we're not playing on the stairs. We're sleeping. And we thought he was just crazy, I still think my father's crazy. But anyway. And so, we hadn't been there that long when I felt once again that something was staring at me. And I rolled over, and at the foot of my bed was, across the foot of my bed was actually the door. And there stood this figure. This man. I thought, okay, well, Daddy's just checking on me, so I rolled over back to sleep. Well, I kept feeling it. I'm like, and so I rolled back over and I was like, Dad, what you want? And I'm trying to sleep. And the man didn't say anything. So the next morning, I saw Dad. I was like, Dad, what were you doing in my doorway? He goes, I was downstairs. I fell asleep downstairs. And I'm like, okay, well, somebody was in my doorway standing there. All you saw is the shape of a man's figure. You can tell a man's figure between a woman's figure. And I'm like, okay, that's really, okay. And so it kept on a couple nights here and there, nothing really, you just have that sense that you're being watched. And so we finally found out that an older gentleman had died in the front, the front part of the house, which is the living room. And it was always cold in that living room. And so we found out that it was him. My mom did some research because she started seeing him too, and David just heard the footsteps, and he would be at the door, always at the door. Like he was not a harmful spirit at all. He was just one of those that I think he was just a protector, just keeping an eye out. And we lived in that house, I want to say maybe for 2 years before we moved again. And this entity, it just seems like spirits followed our family, but we ended up moving to Taylor's. And we had what we found out later on was called the Sad Man. And we had been in this house maybe a month when my mama started seeing a shadow peeking out of the laundry room, which is right off the kitchen. And then my brother started noticing that there would be footsteps coming up the stairs, and this was a 2-story house. And I always saw him out of the corner of the eye, but I never really saw him as much as I felt him. And it was always sad. It was always depressing. It was always this. It was always that. We didn't stay in that house too long. And we thought we were crazy.
That kind of depressed you guys as well?
It did. It did. The house was always depressing. But you have to also, before I go any further on this, you have to also understand that my father had a violent temper.
Okay.
My father was very physically and mentally abusive to my mother. And then it went on to me as soon as I started getting into my teenage years. So, but yeah, I mean, I would be the first one in the house from school, and you could just feel the sadness. We never understood. It wasn't until a couple years later we ran into some people that had lived in that house right after we moved out, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that was the sad man." And I'm like, it was interesting.
So it was kind of clarity for you guys then. It was kind of like, oh wow, we aren't the only ones.
Wow, yeah, there's something really kind of going on. But I want to stop here. But we've always had paranormal. But this is not the first time my mom has seen it. We've actually sat down many a times. We've talked about things in her childhood. And even into their David and her marriage. And I want to stop here. We have actually a picture. Actually, it's a huge. It's not a picture. It's a painting or a portrait or whatever. And it's old. It was given to my grandmother when my mom was like 13, 14 years old. And my mom ended up getting this painting because she loved this painting. And when she got married to David. And this painting is really heavy. Actually, I have it in my possession. Well, not where I live now. It's in my mom's old house. I'll get back to that later. But anyway, in order for this portrait to be hung, you have to have the nail at an angle into a stud. And you have to literally lift the painting up above your head, put it flush up against the wall, and slide it down to be able to put it on. This is the way it's done. My father had gotten some really pretty candelabras that was in the shape of a music note and put it on both sides of the portrait. And 2 days later, the portrait was sitting on the floor. Thought that my mom took it down. She said, I didn't touch it. And so he puts it back up there again, 2 days later, on the floor. Nail still in the stud, at an angle. He finally had to move the candelabras away from it, and it stopped. And both the candelabras and that painting both came from a plantation in Charleston.
Okay. Now, when this thing was on the ground, how was it? Just like willy-nilly on the ground, looked like it fell, or
really? Somebody picked it up and just put it down, set it down, and it was just laying up against the wall.
Okay.
The dog barked at it. They had a friend of theirs that was kind of psychic. That did come out when the story, Mama was telling me about the story, that they had to actually cover the painting. It's of a mother and a little girl. My kids, I don't have it here because my kids actually asked me not to bring the painting when we moved and I'll explain all that, from where my mama's old house was up here, and they were like, Mama, don't take it.
Gave them the creeps.
Well, this painting will shift. It freaked we had a couple over, and I'm kind of like getting off of whatever, but I want to explain that the paranormal has been going on in our family for years. Right. But this painting, I had a couple over, a friend of ours over for dinner, and they're sitting there talking, and the painting's actually behind us. And they just stared. And I said, what's the matter? And they said, that painting moved. It shifted.
Right in front of them.
And I'm like, right in front of them.
Wow.
And so, yeah. But let me go back to, after the sad man, we finally moved and everything kind of really settled down. I didn't see anything. And it wasn't until we moved to Easley, my mom and dad bought a house. By this time I was 16. I just had my back surgery. And we had moved into a house that they had bought. And it was, I want to say an acre or maybe less than that. I have 7/4 of an acre or whatever. It's not a full acre. And it was a ranch style house. And we moved into it and had to have a cast on. So I was homeschooled. But that house was creepy. And then the house was peaceful. And there was a lot of things that was going on within the house. This is when I actually started hearing voices. And I happened to have been in my room and I heard tap. I'm like, Mom, are you home? And I get up and I go and the car's not there. Mom's car's not there. And nobody's in the house. Okay. And, or I will walk down the hall and feel like something just passed or touched me, brushed me, passed through me, whatever. And I'm like, okay, that's really weird. And, I never felt like I was alone in the home. It didn't start really amping up, and we had been there for a while. I had gotten the cast off and I started driving again. And I would come home. My father always had a curfew. The car needs to be in the driveway at 11 o'clock. I don't care what you do, but the car needs to be in the driveway. So, I would go sit. Come on, guys. I got to go home. It's 11 o'clock. It's almost 11 o'clock. Come on, let's just hang out in the yard. And we would pull up and we would sit there. And every once in a while, I feel like, something's watching. Kind of look around and my friend's like, what's going on? And I'm like, I think somebody's in our yard. And they're like, we're in your yard. Or there'd be times that I pulled up late at work, 3 o'clock in the morning. We all know what 3 o'clock in the morning is.
Yeah.
From working a double shift, and I'm like, you hear rustling and there's no wind. And you feel this presence. And, there was just, okay, really? Okay, I'm going to hurry up and get in the house now. Because it wasn't just in the house, it was also outside the house. But shortly after, and this is where I come in, and this is where I started finding out I can sense these things. I had started dating this cowboy, and he had a friend that was a white witch, pagan, Wiccan, whatever you call it. And he's like, I want you to meet my friend. I was like, okay. And I get out of the car, and I didn't say nothing. And he just looked at me, he stared at me, he goes, you see them, don't you? You sense them, don't you? And I'm like, no lie. I said, what the hell? What you talking about? And he goes, you sense things around you. You sense the spirits that are around you. And I've never met this guy before, and he's sitting here blowing my mind. He also tells me that I have an older man that follows me everywhere. And he described my grandfather, and I'm sorry if I start crying, because he was dear to my heart. He said, this gentleman follows you. And he, like I said, he described my grandfather to a T. And, anyway, and I was like, no. He goes, you're in denial. And he said, stop, just be honest with me. And I was like, yeah, we've got some things going on. He goes, well, you've been always having things going on. You've always been seeing things. And I kind of like looked at him and I was like, okay, all right. He goes, you can talk to me. He said, I'm here to help you. And so, we sat and talked, and I told him, yeah, there's some weird things that are going on, or there's sometimes that I go, to down roads and I feel things or have, and right at that time, it was just feeling. He goes, well, it's going to increase. He said, you will start having visions. You will start, they will connect with you in the dreams. And I'm like, I think you're a bunch of caca, but anyway, because I was raised Baptist. And this is something we don't talk about. We don't talk about this. And so I'm like, okay, you know. And I met his friends several times, and he told me the guy I was dating actually brought his friend to my house, was coming close, and he's like, I can't go. I can't go. There's just completely darkness over in this area. And he actually pinpointed my house. And he pinpointed a lot of activity that was going on. And he says, you're going to have to take me. He says, I can't deal with this. This is making me sick. And so he never did. Kelley, my boyfriend at the time had to come and get me and then take me there. But he taught me some things. And this is when I really listened to him.
So he must have been psychic as well, right?
Me, psychic? I don't think so.
Well, yeah,
I don't want to say that. Oh, he must have. Oh, yeah, he must have. He, there was some things that he was telling me that nobody knew, not even my parents. Some of the things that were going on with me. And he's like, I see you, they watched you in the house. They called your name. And I'm like, they know who you are. I'm like, what? I'm like, 17 years old and having to listen to this, But he did help me out a lot. He said, if it gets to the point that they're bothering you, tell them to go on, not right now. And I ended up losing contact with him after me and the guy that I was dating broke up. And it was a bad breakup, and him and I lost contact. And I was like, totally forgot about it. And Mom and Dad got a divorce. Mom kept the house. And actually, we lived in the house for a very long time, like 15 years. But I had gotten pregnant right out of high school. And that's when I had Caitlin, a 27-year-old. And I would be working. As a matter of fact, I moved out of my parents' house. So my mom and my dad would watch. This is before they got divorced. Let me back up. Before they got divorced, Mom and Dad would watch Caitlin for me. And I got a phone call. I had moved closer because I actually worked in Greenville. And I moved in with my cousin. So I got a phone call one morning, and my father was talking to me. And I mean, normally my father doesn't, call me. He's like, you ain't going to believe this. And I'm like, what? He said, I happened to hear Caitlin in the bedroom talking. And I was like, okay. He says, and there was a little girl with her.
Oh, did he hear?
And I'm like, what?
Hear the little girl too?
Yeah, he could hear the little girl too.
Ooh.
My mom and my dad has a Hank in his house. But, and I'm like, okay. He's like, you can hear the little girl talk back to her. And, Caitlin was just playing. And I'm like, okay. All right, and I worked nights. So when I was working, my mom would always swing by, pick up Caitlin and keep her for the nights that I was working. And then I would go and get her. And so anyway, things fell through. I ended up having to move back home with them. I ended up getting married to my first husband. And he was in the military, and we were getting prepared to go to Hawaii. He was a Marine. Things fell through on that. Long story short, he ended up coming home and moving in with me and Mom and Caitlin. And this is where the demonic presence started, but didn't end. We happened to start going back to church. I had rededicated my life back to God. And it'd been a month that he had been back now. And I felt uneasy. Once again, I was tossing and turning. I couldn't sleep. And so I sat up in the bed, and all of a sudden I see this dark shadow starts walking into my room. He has red eyes. He's 6 foot something. I want to say 6'3", 6 foot, whatever. And he comes to the edge of my bed. And the only scripture I can remember is what my grandfather had given me, John 1, verse 1. And I started quoting that. And by this time now, I'm up on my knees, straight up, staring him in the face, quoting the scripture. And I said, Satan, get thee behind me. And he turned around and he walked out. And I thought, okay, well, this is the end of it. A couple of years later, I was coming home. Me and my first husband, my ex-husband, had been fighting. I found out that he had cheated on me, and he actually packed up everything and left me for the other woman. Well, good riddance. Bye-bye. I was coming home, and there stood, as soon as I got out of the car, and I ended up having to go back to my mom's house. There stands this dark shadow kind of in the driveway.
Of your mom's house?
Of my mom's house.
Okay.
This is the one we've been in for, so many years. And I'm back there again, back in Easley. And I just looked at it, and I just felt pure evil. Pure evil. And, this is something you don't talk about, especially in the church. Most churches, you don't talk about that, because some churches don't believe in spirits and don't believe in this. But anyway, and I'm just standing there, and it was like I'm kind of frozen, and I'm just staring at it. And I'm like, okay, all right, this is great. And I just say, Lord, help me. And by that time, I was able to go out the house. And it was like several years later. It wasn't until I met my husband now. He come over. And the first night he came over, we Mama had a fireplace that was gas logs.
So you hadn't seen it in between that time again?
No.
Okay.
Everything kind of calmed down. You have to see, everything kind of calmed down. So when Shane showed up at the house right after work, this is like going on at 12 o'clock, and we're sitting there drinking coffee, getting to know each other. And then all of a sudden, he just kind of looks down the hallway. And I'm going, what? He goes, you got two presences in the house. And he said, one a little girl and the other one dark. I said, okay. And so I looked at him, and this is the first time we've actually sat down and talked, because every time I met him at the gas station. I met him at the gas station, and we would just hold conversations. And then, this is the first time we actually talked, and here's somebody that's seeing something that I'm seeing.
Right.
That I've been sensing. And I said, you see stuff like that? And that opened up a whole conversation between him and I till almost 3-4 o'clock in the morning here. We've already had like 4 or 5 cups of coffee. I mean, we were caffeined up. And that's when I started explaining everything. And, my husband, at the time he was my boyfriend, or we were talking, he's like, you sense them. You see this, and he noticed that about me. He's like, I can tell that you've been around this. And as it progressed on, the entity, the little girl would show herself more to him than anything else. I never saw. I always saw the dark figures. I always felt everything else. The little girl never showed herself to me. Showed herself to Caitlin, and showed herself to my husband, but never to me. And he would spend a lot of time over there. And this is like at this time, it's in 1999. And we ended up finding out that I was pregnant with my second child, his first child, Brianna. Things started shifting in the house. I would still hear my voice. You would hear things start getting moved. I would place my keys down at the table, and my keys would end up in the sink. So and I think at that time we had gotten a camera for Christmas or something like that. And so we decided, my husband and I was like, let's just take pictures. And I'm like, okay, this is basically where the investigation, everything really started for us as investigators. So we went around, and we just started taking pictures. And we started catching, like in one of the back bedrooms, we saw a light streak come down in the corner. We would have orbs outside. We would have shadow things standing outside.
And you caught a lot of these on camera? Taking pictures. Okay. Taking pictures. Just randomly just taking pictures. No EVPs, no nothing. Because we were new to that. I was new to this investigation.
I've always sensed them, but when it came to investigating, I really wish we had the pictures. I don't have the laptop anymore, or not laptop. We didn't have a laptop. We actually had a desktop. I don't have that anymore because everything was on it. But anyway, we finally moved out. We finally moved out on our own, and we ended up moving into a trailer right across from where he worked. One Christmas, I was snapping pictures, and I really wish I would have had this picture. Then in the background, you can see clear as day a black man standing behind my mom.
But he wasn't there to the naked eye?
He was apparent to the naked eye. He was actually in a tuxedo. You can see the bow tie and the thing. He wasn't, very interesting. Anyway, we had an opportunity to get the trailer across from us, which was a 3-bedroom instead of a 2-bedroom. And that's when I found out I was pregnant again with Alex. When I was 2001, Shane and I got married in 2001, April 2001, we found out my grandmother passed away, and I was pregnant with Alex. And Alex is my grandmother's namesake. Alex's middle name was Natoma, which came from my grandmother. But anyway, when Alex was born, we had her in our room for the longest time, and my husband and I decided, okay, it's about time to go ahead and move her in her own room. We got the baby monitors and everything else like that. And the first night I was really worried, toss and turn, and all of a sudden I heard, God love. My grandmother would say that.
Whoa.
That was her favorite phrase when it comes to babies. God love. And then, so I'm like, honey, someone needs in. And I didn't realize, it's like, honey, go check the babies. And he gets up, and there happens to be a teenager standing in the hallway, a spirit. And my husband comes back, and he goes, well, not only is your grandmother here, we have a teenager.
Weird.
Yeah. And, they're like I said, and I'm trying not to be so long because I know this podcast is probably a short one and I don't want to lose people's attention or anything like that. But I'm going to fast forward. We ended up having Michael, and we were trying to buy a house. We moved back into the house, back in Mama's house in Easley. And she ends up meeting and marrying one of her high school friends. So we end up moving in to take care of it until she's able to sell it. And that's when we started investigating for the second time. We got us a new camera. We've been taking pictures. And this is where the dreams that I was told I was going to start having things happen in my dreams. We had a friend of ours, Charlotte, over, and we were telling her about everything that's been going on in the house. And she also kind of sensed things. She said, ooh, this place is really, but she wasn't really all out there like Chip Coffee or, none of them. But she was like, ooh, this place just kind of feels, maybe y'all need to investigate, see what's in here. So we actually did. And there happened to have been a shed out there next to the gate, and there was a gap. So I'm just goofing around and I'm taking pictures. We go back to the desktop, and there we have this guy with a burlap bag over his head. And I'm just staring. And my husband's talking to me. And he's like, Tamara, he's tapping me on the shoulder. Tamara. Charlotte goes, he's connected to her, or she's connected to him, or something like that. And so they try to break my connection just by like I said, I'm just looking at the picture, and now I can, and I remember he was talking to me. He's in the house talking to me. He's showing me some things. And so anyway, Charlotte ends up leaving, and I go to bed. And he comes to me in my dreams, and he shows me that he was involved with the head farmer's daughter. And the dad didn't like it, and that they beat him up. They put a burlap bag over his head, and they hung him. I woke up grabbing the sheets, pouring sweat, my husband's like, what's going on, honey? And I'm like, this is going to sound, I'm not crazy, but he just showed me everything. Who's he? The guy with the burlap bag.
What did your husband say?
He's like, really? So what did he show you? And I go, honey, I'm not crazy. He goes, no, hon. He says, you know, you've been connecting. He says, since we've been in a relationship together, he says, you've been connecting with spirits. Matter of fact, we happened to have been staying at his mom's house one time, and the spirit that was in the house was talking to me in my sleep, and I'm talking to her. And he's wide awake, and he actually sees her because he sees. Okay. He has them come to him.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
Yeah. I'll go into further detail. He's my I call him my anchor. He's helped out a lot, especially with some of the demonic stuff that we had to deal with. Anyway, I'm going to fast forward through everything. Like I said, my mom got married. She moved to Johnsonville, South Carolina. Had this 2-story house that was built in 1920. Her second husband ends up passing away, and his mom ends up passing away. We get a phone call. She's like, Mom, she's like, Tamara, I can't handle this house by myself. It's just me. Caitlin was living with her because Caitlin chose to live with her. Anyway, and I was like, sure, Mom, we'll move down. We'll move down and help the house. We've gone down to visit several times. It sits on like 8 acres of land. Wraparound front porch needed some work. I didn't realize the hell I was about to put my family through. We have never seen activity before as strong as this place was. Now, this place is not far from where Pee Wee Gaskins had buried his murder victims.
Oh.
So we get moved down there. My husband stays up here, the other kids. It's got 4 bedrooms upstairs, 1 bedroom downstairs. I'm in one of the bedrooms. Everything was fine for a while. My brother and his wife moves in, and they start experiencing things before I did. They would call me and my mom on the phone, when you're coming home. Why? The house is shaking. The doors are opening. People are banging. People are this. People are that. And we was like, this is going on. And we're like, okay, you're crazy. We've never experienced anything in the house. Well, it so happened after they left, I slept downstairs, which was Granny Catherine's room. And the stairs we've tried to mock it several times, what I had heard with the kids running up and down the stairs. We can't, the stairs are really thick. This house was built in 1920, 1930. So the stairs are really long and thick. But I heard tum, 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 and the door slam. And then the door to the bathroom next to the room slam. And then the door slams again. The door opens to the hallway leading up the stairs, and you hear tum, 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 and the door slams. Okay, really? So I woke when my kids woke up, I said, I want y'all to run up and down the stairs, and I'm gonna go in the room here. They couldn't, no matter, run faster. Mama, if we run faster, we're gonna fall down the stairs. We could never recreate that. Then it got a little worse, and then it started amping up. My husband and I, we were downstairs watching TV. He was down for the weekend, and 2 of the girls, Caitlin and Brianna, come running downstairs. Mama, our globe, the little globe, earthly globe, has just slung across the room. And they were like, I'm like, okay, this is it. That's it. And I looked at my husband and I said, you had the sage that I told you to buy. And he goes, yeah. I said, we're doing it right now. So we go upstairs and we got EVP. I was asking who's here, and all you could hear was kind of thing going on. And I'm like, okay, that's it. We're saging the house. I had anointing oil. We went through and we saged and opened up everything, and we were telling it to get out and whatnot. Everything calmed down. Then everything ramped back up again.
How soon after?
Yeah, I want to say about 4 months after. Okay, 4 months after everything was kind of calm. Now all of a sudden we're hearing footsteps, boot, marching steps upstairs. I've started experiencing dark shadows by my bed again. And if they, I would wake up and going, out, now, out. And it would literally go out the window. I would hear a little girl go, Mommy. Get up, go check the kids. They're fine. We also noticed at this time my son now, who never peed the bed, started peeing the bed. Come to find out, he had a dark shadow that would hang out in the corner, and he would be scared to literally get up. And he would sleep with his pillow or his blanket completely over him. We would go back through and stage the house and put anointing oil all over the place. Everything would calm down for him. 4 or 5 months later, here we are. Then all of a sudden, an Indian started revealing himself to me. And it was always, because I worked second shift, so I would come in the house at about 12 o'clock, and he would be standing off in the distance. You can see him. He's got his, oh gosh, like he's going not to war, but to hunt. He's got his, I want to say tunic on. He doesn't have the pants. He's got his garb out on his chest. He's got the feathers in his hair. He's got the markings on his face. And he would watch me go in the house. And anytime we would come outside, he would always appear to me like he was protecting. One night we were having a bonfire, and I could hear him running the horses. Mama had horses, and he would run the horses. And then he would stand at the edge of the gate, and he would watch me go in the house. And it was always at nighttime. And then shortly after that, my husband had to go back up. His father got sick, so he had to go back up to this upstate of South Carolina. So I was left with the kids. My mom had gotten sick. She was in the hospital. And we started hearing some things outside. And my mom has a gun. And so one night we kept hearing some things outside. And so my daughters were getting freaked out. My kids were getting freaked out. And I was like, okay. So I went, got Mama's gun, cocked it back, walked out the door. My daughter slammed the door, locked it. I'm like, oh, you leaving me out here? Mama, you got the gun. And so I'm out there and I'm walking the property, and there stands this figure like smoking a cigarette. And I'm like, you need to get off the property. And at first I thought it was human until I fired a couple shots at it, and he still stood there.
Wow.
Okay.
Did you ever get to sense anything off of him?
Oh, yeah. But see, at the time, the house was so active. There was a lot of things going on that I couldn't pinpoint. When there's a lot of activity going on, I was sensing the little girl. I had the man that was driving me crazy. I had the Indian that was showing himself. There was a lot of things, so I could not pinpoint.
Makes sense.
I could not pinpoint just one.
It's like being in a crowded room and everybody talking at the same time.
It basically is being in a crowded room and being able to feel everybody's emotions, and they're not saying anything, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which that started too. It was just we couldn't pinpoint anything. So then, we would see dark shadows outside. You could see the shadow people walking. My husband and I was having lunch one day, and my mama's air compressor turns on that's outside under the garage. We go out there, and the air compressor's not even plugged in. We would hear women's voices, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it says people from my mama. Let me go and tell them. And I go outside, and nobody's there. I ended up getting a job at an assisted living in Tampico, which is not far from where we were living. And this is where, oh my God, that place was so demonic.
Really?
To the point to where I carried my Bible and would constantly read scriptures. Oh yeah, my husband even worked there on the weekends, and he saw a hellhound walk right through the yard.
Wow.
I had an entity to go home with me and pace upstairs across my window growling. Oh yeah, this place was unreal, and we were there from 2008 to the point to where we finally left in 2015.
Did you ever do any history on the place or any of the places that you were at?
We actually called a paranormal group to help us out, and I met with them, but they never called me back.
Wow. They didn't do their job very well, did they?
No, they didn't. And that's when Shane and I got to the point to where, you know what, we're going to have to investigate ourselves. This is. We did do history on the house. But but we wasn't coming up. We were coming up with a dead end. We know that there was another house on the property that did burn down. We didn't find anything about the Indians, but of course, that's also where Swamp Fox kind of roamed. We would be out there at the bonfire and it'd be nothing to see a dark shadow. You know, the shadow people walk right by. I would have things disappeared. I had sermons on flash drive. That flash drive disappeared. I had a vision journal. The vision journal disappeared. Still to this day, we can't find it. But we ended up going to this one particular church one time, and this is where our this is going to be weird, and I'm gonna go into detail with you on this.
I like weird.
You like weird?
Yeah.
I get a sense that something. This is where I started sensing people. Just in general, people's names would come, and I would. So I sent a message to a friend of mine that goes to church with us, or a friend of ours. And I was like, you know, PJ, is everything okay? And this was like at 3:00 in the afternoon, 12 o'clock at night, he's calling me. Tamara, what are you seeing? I said, I don't know. I'm not seeing anything. I only know that something's wrong with you. He goes, well, me and my wife just have some problems. And I said, all of a sudden I kind of hear something, you know, in the background. And I said, PJ, I said, where are you at? He goes, I'm in the back of the church. You're what? And before I go any further, you have to understand, I had a vision of the church, and I saw this 9-foot tall entity within the church, and it had two. You know how like a snake's tongue is divided?
Yeah.
This one has the nose. It has something on it that's divided, like it was sniffing out something within the church. And I did not realize what this entity was actually doing until later on, and I'll explain. And we were supposed to actually go and cleanse the church out. So anyway, I was like, PJ, I think you need to go home. And he goes, oh no. He goes, you know what? Me and her had a night, you know, I just need to get away for a while. He says, I just been feeling weird. And I said, PJ, why? He said, all of a sudden, I just feel anger. And all of a sudden, PJ goes, hold on. And you hear this thump in the background. And I said, PJ, what's the matter? And he goes, something just jumped in the back of my truck and there's nothing there. And then all of a sudden, I hear PJ say, no, you can't have my children. And I said, PJ, what's going on? He goes, whatever's in the back of my truck's talking to me.
Weird.
And I'm like, okay. And by this time, I'm slapping my husband, and I'm like, honey, get your pants on. I'm like, PJ, just keep praying, you know, PJ, just pray. I'm on my way. And I'm trying to get my bra on and trying to get my pants on, and I have this big T-shirt on. And I'm like, excuse me, barking orders to my husband. Honey, you know, you need to go ahead and get the water. My rose oil is there. We need to combine the two. Go ahead and pray over it. We got to go. And about that time, I hear PJ go, it's in the cab with me. And I said, PJ, I'm on my way. And I'm like, where's our keys, you know? And all of a sudden, PJ goes, no, you cannot have my children. And I hear, why not? And I'm like, oh, we got to go down. And so I get in my car and I hit 80 all the way down to the church. And where we were at was out in the country, so it was like almost 8 miles to the church. It was a long, straight road. I mean, I'm hitting 80, 90 miles an hour on the phone with PJ. My husband's over here playing over the water that we put rose oil, and we come up behind the church, and there was a road behind the church, and I just parked my car. And I get out. And this is kind of, it's cool outside. It's not hot at all. It's kind of fall. And I'm going to iterate this. There was no wind, because you'll find out later on when I finish. There was no wind whatsoever. And PJ's out of the truck, and the doors are open. He goes, I'm not getting back in this truck. I said, you should have never got on this property, PJ. I said, let me tell you something. My husband and I is supposed to this Saturday go through this building. I said, PJ, I've already seen visions. There's an entity within the church, which is shocking. Really, this is supposed to be a holy place. Okay, there's this huge entity in the church. And I said, PJ, you really don't need it. My husband also brought some crystals with him. So I'm like, and I'm shaking up the bottle. And I'm like, okay. I said, PJ, I want you to go praying. And I started praying in the name of Jesus, saying, you leave this truck alone. And as I sprinkled the truck, you can hear it sizzling. And I go around and I'm praying and going around and I'm just sprinkling and it's sizzling. And I sprinkle inside and I kind of thing. And I come around and then I go and I pour all this stuff on my hands and it's dripping, and I get a hold of PJ and start praying, and something tells me to look back. And as soon as I look back, standing in front of my car is this dark entity, 6 foot something, dark entity. And I turned back around, and when I went to go look at my husband, in between us happened to be this beautiful angelic. This is the first time I have ever seen something like this. Very first time, with everything that I have seen, this angelic being standing there. And it was just a beautiful glow and the warmth from it and the peace out of it. And he stood there, and I went and I grabbed PJ and I started praying, and I started, calling forth, the Archangel Michael to send your, God, send your warring angel, send, Michael, down. And all of a sudden this wind picked up out of nowhere and just came from behind me all the way through. And then everything was done. And then it was gone. As quickly as the wind came, the wind was gone. And I said, PJ, you feel better? He goes, yeah. He said, I feel back myself. I said, don't come back to this place until we cleanse it. PJ, I can't go into too much detail, but there's a dark entity attached to this property, attached in that church. And come to find out, this particular pastor, he likes to spread gossip amongst the church. We actually went in and anointed it, and then he turned around and started wiping everything back down. Yeah. He then started attacking me and my husband, saying that I was having an affair with one of the members of the church, and a bunch of other stuff. We ended up leaving the church.
Do you think that entity was there because of him?
My honest opinion, and not my opinion, some of the things, and we have to be, and whoever's listening, you need to be very careful who you bring into your home and what they're bringing. Okay? You have these dark entities that are leeches. You bring in negativity in the home. And that's why, because we would have some of these church people over their home, and that's why we had to go back and re-anoint. And it's not that we didn't have faith in God. It's that we were allowing dark things coming back in the house. And when you've got dark things going on in a space, and it's not when you've got a mother and father fighting, that's why the dark space in my mama's, that ranch style home that I was telling you about, is because my father was very negative, very abusive, very, physically and mentally, which caused everything to ramp up.
Yeah, because these things kind of feed off of that negative energy.
They do feed off that negativity.
They also cause it quite a bit too.
Yes, very much so. They do. But David was always abusive from the time Mom and Dad got married. So, he just intensified there at that ranch house. But the house in Johnsonville, Al was very negative. So his spirit was there, and everything was just intense there. And then we had some people to come in, and I'm going to say this because I've learned a lot, and I could talk about my church hurt, things that I've witnessed in a church. I've seen demonic sitting in the pews. As a matter of fact, the preacher that we had to go bless his church actually had a dark shadow attached to him.
That's weird that it follows them into the church.
You would think that this place is holy. You're always growing up in Christianity, like I would, have been. This place is sacred. This place is holy. But you know what? How many people are constantly walking in the church bringing darkness with them?
Yeah, and how many people act not right in the church. You know, you hear all these Catholic priests doing this stuff to altar boys and stuff like that. I mean, there's got to be something there with it too, you know?
Right. And it's not just, you're also looking, and not trying to change the subject, but it's not just the Catholics. It's, you know, I saw 2 articles where 2 Baptist preachers, you know, got arrested for child pornography.
Yeah.
And so you're bringing that entity into what's supposed to be a sacred place. But here's the thing, and I'm going to say this, that building is not the church. We are.
Right. Yeah, the temple should be within you and not
within us. Correct. You know, so that was the first time we ever really battled demonic like that. And that wasn't the last.
Let me ask you real quick while we're here at this point. Say somebody one of my listeners are at home right now and they've noticed for the last couple of months or whatever that there's been some tension in the house and there's really no explanation for it, and they think now that there may be some dark something attached to them or their other or the house. What can they do at this point to try to ease that back, to try to get rid of it? What can they do? What options do they have?
Well, first of the option, this is what I tell everybody, and this is what I tell Crystal. You know, Crystal and I, and of course, Crystal was on your broadcast earlier. She's a really good friend. As a matter of fact, she reaches out to us when there is incidents like this. But the first thing, you know, to anybody who's listening, if you are having things that are happening in your house, document it. The time, the what, where, you know, the when, you know, what you're seeing, explain everything. Don't fear it. First of all, don't fear it. You know, my husband and I, we can walk in the house and bless the house. When we do that, we do get the owners involved. We make sure the children are out of the house because we can't go in there and demand it to get out because it's not our house. We tell the owners, demand it to get out. Show it authority. Don't be scared of it. You know, to document it. You know, to reach out. We can teach you how to sage a house. We can get you the stuff to bless the house. You know, you can either bless the house with holy water, which I have, and being a priest, I have plenty of. Or I can teach you how to combine rose water or rose oil with holy water and sprinkle the house. The first and foremost, document everything. Don't fear it. Don't let it feed off your emotions. Don't ruin a good marriage because the entity's in the house and it's causing you to have all these emotions. Sometimes even I've even tell people, you might want to get out for a while. Just take a break from the house.
How can someone be sure?
But once you get out,
how can someone be sure that they have something? Maybe somebody out there has you know, they maybe think that they do, but they're not sure. How can they be sure? Is there any way to tell?
It's just a document. I mean, don't get me wrong. We've had people to call us and go, you know, me and Crystal's gone and investigated a house that they swore up and down there was something in it. And my husband and I walked in and we didn't sense anything. All we're getting was tension. And that's the one thing with me. I can feel the tension with the people living as well. There was tension within the people living. And if you sit and listen to their story, you know, and sometimes it's not the house, it's not an entity, it's not demonic, it's not a haint or whatever. It's the tension within the family, you know?
So for those of my listeners out there that don't know what a haint is, go ahead and explain that to them. Because I'm sure I got a couple that are scratching their heads.
A haint. There's a haint is a mischievous, he's like 4 foot. You'll never see them face on, always on the corner of their eye. You know, they're 4 feet, kind of mischievous, kind of little, I don't want to say trolls. And they're just there to mess with you. They're jokesters. that's to get off of Haines.
You find them in the South mostly.
Yeah, like I said, my father has one and driving him crazy. I love it.
Yeah.
But I think, you need to, I think first and foremost, you have to look out. Houses creak. Houses make noise. Houses do this. If you and your husband are fighting, or you and your wife is fighting or whatever, you're causing a lot of negativity in the atmosphere. You also have to be very careful, because if a house is not haunted and you're saying it's haunted, you're going to make it haunted. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does to me. Yeah, you're going to attract it. You're basically inviting it in at that point.
Right. Exactly. Like, you have to be very careful who you're inviting in your house, because once you open up that door, even though you anointed everything and you opened up that door and you've told that person who probably has maybe something's attached to them, or they have evil thoughts, or they're very negative themselves, you're bringing it back into your home. So you just got to be very careful who you bring into your home.
Makes sense. So,
but yeah, first and foremost, that's the top. I think the top thing is to investigate, to make sure it's not, it's not just your imagination. Look, and it doesn't hurt if you feel, I'm one of those that she'll call me and she'll go, well, they're saying, but I'm not quite sure. Well, let's go and investigate. I always walk into a house very skeptic. Even though I have seen everything that I've seen, I still walk in the house very skeptic. I don't think anything's here. The house has to prove to me that something's there.
That's kind of the way it should be. But that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
So up to that point, what do we got after that?
We're just now my husband and I have formed Lakeland Research with Lakeland Paranormal Research. I am actually in the process of talking to a bishop. I got to get my bishop, Bishop Ed. He's been really busy to write a letter for another bishop to go through demonic training with me. Now, I've dealt with demonic, but I haven't dealt with exorcism.
Okay.
That's two different things. I deal with it outside of the human being.
Right.
I've never dealt. Now, don't get me wrong. I have connections where if there is somebody that believes that a family member is demonically possessed, I have a phone number that I can call, and that somebody can be there, where we're at is, and it goes back, and the whole reason that we've done this is because the church is not really, to be honest with you, not really there for somebody going through things like this. Even looking through here lately, looking through what Ed and Lorraine Warren went through with trying to get the Catholic Church out there to do anything. If you're not, the Catholic Church is like, we got to investigate, we got to do this, we got to do that. You got to be part of the Catholic Church. We don't think this is happening. What Shane and I is, you call us, we'll come investigate. We'll hang with you through this. If something's there, we're going to go battle it with you. We'll show you the tools of fighting. I have a book that I keep very private, not private, but very sacred, that has prayers all throughout it. For prayers of protection, the St. Michael's prayer, deliverance prayer, whatnot, so forth on. And that's where we're at right now, because I don't care what denomination you are, we will be there for you.
Do you feel like you attract these things? Maybe you and your husband more so together?
I don't want to say attract. They're not in our home.
Okay.
And we make sure that. But because we are sensitive, my husband a little bit more than, I feel my husband will actually see them with his eyes. I see them like with what we call the third eye, with the visions in my head. Because we are open or sensitive to that, they come to us.
And what about your kids?
They don't
Do
come
they
to my
have
home.
any special abilities?
No. Well, one of them does. She's in the process of developing hers.
Okay. Yeah, I always wondered that. It's a curiosity of mine to find out.
Yeah, Brianna. Yeah, matter of fact, Brianna had a friend of hers that had this dark shadow with long fingers. We know that's demonic. And it tortured her friend to the point she had a miscarriage. And then shortly after that, the dog died. And my husband and I traveled up to North Carolina to go attend to that. And we were about to go, and my husband's like, look, no, Brianna needs to do it. And we looked at, my husband was like, I'm being told it's not our job to do it, Brianna needs to do it. So we gave her the tools and everything. I blessed and did holy water right there. I had my relics, my priest ring and necklace, because that's actually where the Celtic church is. It's in Fort North Carolina. So anyway, we gave her the tools and we told her what to do. And I had my prayer book. And normally I carry my prayer book with me. I had my prayer book with me, told her some prayers to say and some of the things to do. And we are on our way back home, and we get a phone call, and she goes, it showed itself and it left. And the house has been peaceful ever since.
Good deal. Now, can people contact you if they have issues? Will you come out and help them?
Yes.
Now, usually do you get Crystal involved in the investigation part of it, and then she calls you, or how does that work?
Sometimes there's been times that we've done investigations. It depends. It depends if I need Crystal. Sometimes I can call Crystal, and I'm like, look, I need you to investigate this for me. I can't get up there right now. I'm working. I work nights. Tell me what's going on. I'm one of those, I'll come whether or not there's evidence or not. That's the whole key point, is to give this family some closure or some peace about whatever's going on.
Peace of mind anyway, yeah.
Yes, very much so. I can walk up and, honey, there's nothing here. But here's the tools. This is what you need to do. When we had that investigation that my husband and we got to the car, and the first thing we were had said was it was a conflict within the family. There's something that we're not counselors, so we can't help in that.
Right.
I can pray with the family. I can bring, my communion stuff and do, bless the house and do communion. But, sometimes if I can't get there, I'll send Crystal. But if we can go and, my son gets involved with us, we will do it. Like I said, it all depends.
Right. So besides the shadow in the closet thing, what is the most terrifying experience that you've had on an investigation or just personally?
The shadow thing in the closet. It's the thing is you're seeing this and you're sensing this. And you don't know, you can't go to your church to talk about it, because if you do, they think you're crazy. I think the whole thing is going through this for a while, thinking that there was something mentally wrong with me. But it still goes back to the thing in the closet. Still to this day scares me. Above everything that else I still saw, that thing in the closet still scares me.
Okay. Fair enough.
I've been bruised. I wake up with bruises. I've been scratched. But that thing in the closet still scares me.
Have you ever ran into a person that's possessed out there?
Not at this point. Not to date. No, I haven't.
Okay. So, how can someone out there get a hold of you, get in touch with you? I assume that you guys have a Facebook page set up for your organization and all that. How can...
Yeah. It's Lakeland Paranormal Research, or they can actually, message me. You can find me at Tamara Wolfe Strickland on Facebook.
Great.
And they can just send me a message. And, I'm one of those, I don't mind, talking to somebody. I do work night shifts at a nursing home that is haunted. So I haven't seen anything as yet, but anyway, that's how they can, and I can talk to them. Normally you can tell, by the tone of their voice, you know, and I don't mind within a certain, now, if I can't get there, if it's too long of a distance, if it's going to, you know, take me like 3-4 hours, I've got people I can contact. But if I can, I will travel. I got a tent. I'll put a tent up in your front yard. You know, I'll sleep in the car. I'll make a day trip or whatever, night trip. Mostly, I like to talk to people first over the phone. You know, yeah, sometimes I'll have Crystal to talk to them because I don't want details. That's one thing that Crystal, she talked about her aunt's house that had the activity going on when I first met Crystal. And she was like, let's ride around. I was like, okay. And we rode up this road and I was like, stop. She goes, okay, stop. Back up a little bit. I'm like, that house got some serious, you know, whatever. And she looked at me and she was like pale as a ghost. And I described, I can't remember whether or not the man or the woman or both or something. I said, something evil happened there. Something really dark happened there. And she goes, oh my God, that's my aunt's house.
Yeah.
We went to a place in Easley where they had done some scalping. And as soon as the car got on the property, my head hurt really bad. Like somebody was cutting into my skin. And I was like, you got to get out of here. You got to get me out of here. Got to get me out of here right now. And I said, she goes, what? I said, somebody's pulling, my hair's being pulled off of my head. And she just looked. She goes, okay, I'm getting out now. Wow. And as soon as the car got off the property, I was fine. She goes, that's where they've been known to scout back in the day. Huh. And then we rode down another road and I'm like, oh my gosh, stop. And she goes, what? And I said, that barn right there. There stands a black man in a pair of, you know, blue jean pants with a handkerchief around her neck. And she's like, that's it. I'm taking you home. I'm taking you.
Freaking her out.
She was like, yeah. So ever since then, that was when our first relationship, ever since then, God, our kids were little. Ever since then, you know, she'll once in a while, you know, we keep in contact. She'll send me pictures or I'll tell her, or I'll start watching TV. You know, I'm, you know, watching Kindred Spirits or whatever. And it's, you know, especially some of the ghost adventures. And I'm like, that's cool, crime, you know, and I'm calling you out on it. And so I'm like, oh my God, really? And then I'll send her a message and going, I cannot believe this is going on in this series and all this other stuff. And I'm like, really? You know, that's made for TV ghost stuff. You know?
You guys got anything going on right now? Any investigations going on right now?
Not at this point. Everything's kind of settled down. Coronavirus has really kind of put a wrench in. It's basically kind of studying, and I do work in a facility that has an old cemetery, and I'm just itching to get over there. Because at nighttime when we step outside just to take a break, I can sense things. But no, you know, I was working in the hospital, and I was working, you know, like 4 or 5 12s and plus doing school. So I was kind of busy, but no, at this time we're kind of, since Corona, we've been kind of down. Yeah. Not doing anything at this moment. But I do want to say this to all the listeners. If there is a demonic presence in your house, if you know it's demonic, you're hearing growling, do not challenge it. Do not sit there and say, is that all you can do? Because it's going to show you what you can do. Keep to your faith. Look up prayers. Put them through. Write them out on notebook paper. Put them throughout your house. Pray them. Put them the way you can see them. Put them on the wall. Put them on the mirrors. Put them on whatever. Say those simple prayers. Tell them you have no authority. Satan has no authority over us. Plead the blood of Jesus Christ upon and believe it. You know, that's some of the things that I'm seeing. Well, we walked in the house and I questioned my faith because it's not working. Well, you're questioning your faith. That's why it's not working. You've got to go up there and stand that, you know, you're allowing these entities to scare you when they have no power over you. So that's one thing that I do tell people. Not to be scared of it.
Good deal. Well, Tam, I really appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to talking with you again, maybe about the church and all that. And if you have any updates in between, let me know. And,
yeah, sure. I would love to give you any updates. And if there's anybody, if you think that you have, reach out and contact me. I'm here to help those, because we didn't have help when I went through all this. That's why, and I have the backing. I do have the backing of my bishop in my church.
That's good to have. Well, all right. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that about does it for Dreamland tonight, dreamers. If you like the show, please remember to hit the subscribe button and feel free to leave us a review. Thanks again for listening, and good night.